My name is Amy, and I'm standing in the grand foyer of a mansion I restored, a place filled with the echoes of my hard work and passion. The air is thick with tension, and 150 pairs of eyes are fixed on me. My parents stand nearby, their expressions a mix of shock, recognition, and something close to panic. Just a few hours ago, I was alone in my apartment, watching the chaos unfold on my phone. The American Institute of Architects had just announced my nomination for the gold medal, and my family's carefully crafted image was crumbling before their eyes. Let me take you back to the beginning. I grew up in the Thompson household, a wealthy family in New York City. My parents, Robert and Catherine Thompson, were obsessed with social status and appearances. They saw success as a measure of wealth and connections, and they expected their children to follow suit. My older sister, Jessica, was the perfect daughter in their eyes. She was beautiful, charming, and married to a high-powered lawyer. They couldn't stop bragging about her achievements, and she was the center of every family gathering. Then there was me. I fell in love with architecture, specifically historic preservation. While it may not have been as glamorous as my sister's career, it was my passion. I spent hours researching old blueprints and working with artisans to restore forgotten buildings. But my parents never understood my choice. My mother would introduce me to her friends as the one who plays with old houses, and my father would tell me that I'd never amount to anything if I didn't choose a more respectable career. I remember one Christmas 10 years ago when I was finally included in a family photo. It was at Jessica's wedding. I was standing at the edge of the frame, wearing a dress I'd bought at a thrift store. Jessica was in the center, looking like a princess in her designer gown, and my parents were beaming at her. I was just an afterthought. Later, I found out that my mother had cropped me out of the photo she posted on social media, saying that the composition looked better without me. But I didn't let their words and actions define me. I knew that my work was important, even if they didn't see it. 3 years ago, I received a call that changed my life. The Carrington Estate, a 200-year-old landmark in the heart of the city, was scheduled for demolition. Developers wanted the land, and the Historical Society had given up hope. But the National Heritage Foundation believed there was a chance to save it, and they called me. I spent weeks preparing a restoration proposal. I studied every detail of the estate, from its original architecture to its historical significance. When I presented my plan to the board, I didn't just show them a building, I showed them a piece of history that was worth preserving.
Dr.
Emily Reed, the director of the National Heritage Foundation, was impressed. She signed the approval letter herself, and I knew that my hard work had paid off. For 18 months, I dedicated myself to the restoration project. I hand-selected every material, and I worked side by side with the artisans to bring the estate back to its former glory. I spent months on the front doors alone, sourcing rare wood and painstakingly restoring the intricate carvings. And through it all, my family knew nothing. I worked under the name of my firm, not wanting the attention or the judgment. 3 weeks before my parents' 40th anniversary party, I received a text message from them. "Amy, don't come to the party. Only high society guests will be there. We don't want to explain your situation." I was used to being pushed aside, but this message felt like a final blow. I didn't reply. I had stopped trying to prove myself to them a long time ago. But that same afternoon, an envelope arrived in my mailbox. It was from the American Institute of Architects, and I was being nominated for the gold medal for my work on the Carrington Estate. It was architecture's highest honor, and it was a validation of everything I had worked for. 1 week before the party, Jessica called. She was being unusually nice, which was always a red flag. She said she'd tried to convince our parents to invite me, but that I wouldn't be comfortable around the other guests. She was fishing for information, trying to find something to gossip about at the party. I told her I was just doing my job, and she seemed disappointed. 3 days later, my father called. He was straight to the point, telling me that the guest list was final and that I shouldn't cause any trouble. He mentioned that Dr. Reed was coming, and that my mother wanted to impress her for a charity board position. I couldn't help but laugh at the irony. 2 days before the party, I got a text from my Aunt Helen. She said that my mother had told her I was struggling with mental health issues, and that's why I wasn't invited. I checked Facebook and found a string of comments from my mother's friends, offering their condolences for having a troubled daughter. My mother had created a whole false narrative about me to justify my exclusion. The night before the party, I called Dr. Reed to confirm the announcement of my nomination. She told me that the committee had finalized everything and the news would go live the next evening, which was the same time as the party. She also mentioned that she'd be attending the party at the Carrington estate. I was stunned. My family was throwing a party in the building I'd saved, surrounded by the evidence of my success, and they were still trying to hide me. On the morning of the party, I was sitting in my apartment trying to focus on work. But Instagram's algorithm showed me Jessica's stories, filled with images of her getting ready for the big night at the Carrington estate. I saw the front facade, decorated with flowers and lights, and there, in the corner of the frame, were the doors I'd restored. I felt a sense of pride, but also anger. They were using my work to impress their friends, but they didn't want me there. The party started at 6 p.m. I didn't attend, but I heard from Dr. Reed later what happened. The guests arrived in luxury cars, and my mother was greeting them in a designer gown, acting like she owned the place. She had no idea that the restoration was my work. At 7:30 p.m. the AIA announced my nomination. The news spread like wildfire among the guests. A local journalist noticed the story and started asking questions. People were shocked to learn that the architect who restored the Carrington estate was the same Amy Thompson that my parents had been trying to hide. My mother tried to deny it at first, saying it was a coincidence. But the evidence was overwhelming. The Architectural Digest article had detailed my work, my education, and even included a quote about my childhood, about how I'd felt unheard in my family. My phone rang at 7:52 p.m. It was Jessica. "Why did you hide this from the family? Mom and Dad are so embarrassed," she shouted. I calmly told her that I hadn't hidden anything. I'd just worked hard, and no one had bothered to ask. Back at the party, the situation was falling apart. Guests were looking at my parents with disbelief. Judge Thompson, a family friend, confronted my father, saying that he was proud of a family that didn't include me. Aunt Helen spoke up, saying that my mother had lied to her about my mental health. Dr. Reed stepped forward and told the story of how I'd saved the Carrington estate. She announced that the National Heritage Foundation had approved a $500,000 grant for the restoration of the city's historic library, and I'd been chosen to lead the project. The room erupted in applause. I decided to go to the party. I put on the simple black dress I'd saved for a special occasion and drove to the Carrington estate. When I walked through the doors I'd restored, the room fell silent. I walked up to my parents. "This building is my project. I spent 18 months of my life on it," I said calmly. "I'm not here to ruin your party. I'm here because this place matters to me." My mother tried to make excuses, saying they thought I'd be more comfortable at home. I pointed out all the lies they'd told about me. My father tried to silence me, but Judge Thompson defended me, saying that the real drama was them inviting guests to a building I'd restored and then excluding me. Dr. Reed presented me with the grant letter. The guests congratulated me, and I felt a sense of validation. My mother was left alone, avoided by her friends. My father's attempt to salvage his relationship with Judge Thompson failed, and Jessica's marriage started to unravel as her husband, Mark, began to question the stories she'd told him about me. In the weeks that followed, I learned that Jessica and Mark were having problems. Mark had started to see through her lies, not just about me, but about other aspects of her life. She sent me a text saying I'd ruined her life, but I didn't respond. I knew that the truth had just exposed the cracks in the foundation she'd built. 3 months after the party, I received a text from my father. He said he'd like to see the library project when it was done. It wasn't an apology, but it was a start. I'm still not sure if I'll ever forgive them, but I've learned that I don't need their approval. I've built my own path, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished. I'm standing outside the library now, ready to start a new project, and I know that I'll never wait for anyone's permission again.